My name is Jim, and I'm a mathematician, or I should say a teacher of mathematics. 52 years of experience. I was a former principal of the Mary Hogan School there back in 1970, 1983. After that, I kind of like toured the United States for 32 years, and I'm getting down to the point where I'm not going to do much but except really selective work because I cannot handle a motel one more time. We are so disrespectful to one another that people who need to get up early to go to work, they like to yell down the halls to their friends who have either overslept or had way too much to drink the night before. And those that do come in after 11 or 12 o'clock, they have no idea how to close the door. We should have at motels how to close the door, seminar, because you know if you're a light sleeper like I am, I mean I had 4 sons, and that's what you learned how to do, is to be a light sleeper, because you're always listening for them to make sure that everything was going okay. So motels are out. I've spent 6,000 nights in a motel, and that's enough. And I still want to do the math because I feel that the math education that we're seeing in the United States is almost beyond pathetic. And so what the thing was that there's a new thing coming, and it's called the Common Core. Now this has been on the way for a long time. It just didn't show up 2 or 3 days ago. But what it is that we have what we call standards. Standards are no more than a set of rules indicating as to what a child should learn, not how a teacher should teach, what a child should learn at a particular grade level. Now we know all kids are so different that they won't all learn the same amount, but that's the goal. And if you do set out a set of standards, like let's just take in my history here, the very first one, 2000 Vermont Framework of Standards, that was so pathetically written that it left a massive void for the schools. And I'm not really I'm not trying to say, you know, it's school's dilemma all the time, because it isn't the thing all the time. But here's a cover of what the document looks like, or looked like. It came out, like I said, in the year 2000, and it had a reign for 4 years, and that's kind of like what it looked like. And it's kind of like pink. If you go on the internet, it is pink. And this is what it said. It said, the purpose of Vermont's framework and standards and learning opportunities to improve students' learning. The student will be used in the standards will be used in 3 ways. To provide a structure from which standard-based district school classroom curriculum can be developed, organized, implemented, and assessed, and to provide the basis for the development of a state, local, and classroom comprehensive assessment system, and to exploit what may be included in the state assessment of student learning. And then they made the standards. So a 3-year-old must have made them, because I knew when I was in college, if I ever knew that upon graduation I would ever have to do these things, I would have definitely not completed college. Because, let's see them. The first one is right here, that the children in K to 4, not A grade, K to 4, are to add, subtract, multiply, and divide with and without whole numbers. I mean, it's unimaginable that that would have ever been an expectation in school. I mean, would you ever dream that people sending their child to school would ever that they would expect that their kids would have to add, subtract, multiply, and divide whole numbers? I mean, beyond my comprehension. And then, next, it really says nice, they're going to begin to use simple concepts of negative numbers, properties of numbers, prime and squares, composite, associative, cumulative, distributive, and 3 digits in large multiplies and divises, rates, fractions, decimals, and percents. And of course, it's very clear as to what you're supposed to do with them. And then this says, describe and compare quantities of simple fractions and decimals. So what happened is when it came out, schools had no place to go. They had no idea what to do. And I know I was working in Vermont schools at the time. I wasn't working at Mary Hogan, but I was working in Vermont schools. So it took only a little while for the new one to come out. And the new one had a new set of words. Instead of saying Vermont's framework of standards and all that, it said grade expectations for Vermont's framework of standards and learning opportunities. Meaning now they were going to tell you what you were supposed to do on a grade level basis. This is what we would like to have children learn in the kindergarten, we'd like to have children learn in the 4th grade, we'd like to have children learn in the 8th grade. And so therefore they made this, and it looks a little bit different than the other one, but not awful different. They changed the color, however. The cover, it didn't come out, but the cover now is blue. But you can see the word grade expectation. And here's what a grade expectation would look like. I have one here so you could see it. Up the top of this sheet is a grade expectation. It's also called a standard. And you can see what it says, and if not, I'll try to read. Demonstrates conceptual understanding of perimeter of polygons, the area of quadrilaterals or triangles, and the volume of rectangular prisms by using models, formulas, or by solving problems, and demonstrate understanding of the relationship of circle measures, radius to diameter, and diameter to circumference by solving related problems. Express all measures using appropriate units. They think that makes sense. That's what they think. So if you're a 6th grade teacher, this is 6th grade, if you're a 6th grade teacher, that's what you receive. This becomes a question that's on a test, which I'll talk about, which is called a kneecap. The kneecap was made for one purpose and one purpose only, to assess the Vermont framework. Schools were to teach the Vermont framework, and the assessment was to see if they did it. And the assessments say they didn't. And they didn't do it even close. And this is after 9 years, and they're still not doing it. Here's an example. Look at this rectangular prism. I mean, it's so traumatic that in the 6th grade you'd have to ask a child to ever consider doing such a horrible, horrible problem. Look at this. We have, it's 4 cubes high. Oh my God, 2 wide, and then 3. And you'd have to most likely say, I don't see 4 times 2. Oh, let me take my shoes off. Oh, let me count on my fingers anyway, because nobody knows their basic facts. Who ever heard of them things? But if you did finally figure out that 4 2s might have been 8, and then 3, you'd say, I got 24. It looks like there's 24 cubes. Then they throw the zinger in and say each cube is worth 8 cubic meters. Centimeters, I should say. And you have to pick from these answers which one it is. When this was done, 61% of the children in the 7th grade, see, because it's the 7th grade test will check to see if they were able to do this. 61% of them got it right. 61. 40% almost got it wrong. I mean, how can you possibly get that one wrong? But that's what we've got. And that's where we are. And so I've been trying to tell and get people to see that, gee, come on, please. We don't have children who know their basic facts. Yet in the 2nd grade it says they're supposed to. That's the grade that they're supposed to learn how to add and subtract. But no, that's not true. Here's another one. Same guy. I picked volume because I had all kinds of released items on the Common Core too. Here we go. Seth used rectangular shoebox like shown for storing your baseball cards. It's an 8 by 16 by 5. What is the area of the square inches at the bottom of the shoebox? What's the volume of the cubic inches of the shoebox? I don't even dare tell you what the results of this one was. It's a 4-point, you get 4 points if you do all these things. 1 point for this, 1 point, 2 points. So nobody did it. The kneecap is dead. It's gone, never to return. The new data is out for this last year. I tried to get it. I cannot get it from the schools. They will not give it to me, or at least they won't return my call because I analyze this stuff and they don't want anybody to know what it says again. So now what is the core? The core is also, it is a set of standards. The only trouble is it's from the federal government, not the state. The state has approved it, but it did it without, like normal, without anybody reading it. Nobody read it. It just said, this is going to be it. And is it okay? Yeah, there are certain reasons that it is. Here is what it looks like. This is it. It is a little bit more complete, but you've got to go to school to try to figure out what it says. So for this, let's see this one here. That's what it says. That's the lead-in. It says the standards. These standards define what students should understand and be able to do in their study of mathematics. Asking a student to understand something means asking a teacher to assess whether the student has understood it, but what does mathematical understanding look like? One hallmark of mathematical understanding is the ability to justify. So that means if I ask a kid, what do you think 3 groups of 4 might be? And the kid says 12. You say, do you have any idea why it really is 12? And the kid says, yes, if I actually sat down and made 3 groups of 4, I actually would get 12 for a result. And you say, would you get it every time? And the kid says, every time I've tried it so far, I've always got 12. You say, so that sounds like it could be true. So what happens now? Now what happens is the federal government is messing with another area. An area that teachers do not want anyone to mess with. All the other standards that have come down the pike from the states have never said a word about teaching. They have never said that you must teach in a manner. The Common Core says, yes, you do. You have to teach in a particular manner. If we can look down the bottom, the major thing is that there are 8 of what they call standards for teaching practice. And here it says the whole idea of the core is to connect the standards for mathematical practice to the standards for mathematical content. So what does that mean? That means the learner is supposed to do all the work. The learner is supposed to be a participant in 9/10 of the learning. The learner is not supposed to be a listener. That's not the job of the learner. It is not the job of a teacher to just tell how things work. That's not their job. I've got a few situations for you to do, but I wanted to show you the difference in the test items. The Common Core is going to be here next year. And I don't know if the kids are going to be ready, but I think a lot of heads are going to fall because the kinds of questions are just a mite different. Here is the actual standard. I got the wrong, I didn't take the transparency of the standard. Here is the actual standard. This is what a teacher in the 6th grade is going to receive if she hasn't already, or he hasn't. It looks very much like the other one. It says, find the volume of a right rectangular prism with fractional lengths. Fractional lengths? Did you notice the other one? It was like 16 by 5 by 8, or 4 by 3 by 4. Now they're going to have fractions like, maybe 2 1/3 times 5 1/2 times 7 1/8. Whoa! Well, that's what they have, and so it's up. People are saying, no. What we're doing is we're dumbing it down. In the kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd grade, we are dumbing it down. No ifs and buts. When we get done with the content area of the first 3 grades, I don't know how children are ever going to do what the grades in 3, 4, and 5 expect, and I know they'll never do the ones in 6, 7, and 8. So here it is. So let's see what kind of a question would they ever think of asking a kid? What would they ever think of asking? So here is one, very similar to the other one, as you can see. Very, very similar. You remember the little one there with the rectangular prism that was 4 by 3 by 2. Do you think this is a little different? It's a truck. It's 7.5, 15 by 7.5, and the boxes are cubes, 2.5 by 2.5 by 2.5. You have to find the volume in cubic feet of each box. You got to figure out how many boxes will fit in the truck. So there's lots of ways to do it, but one would be, I would say, 7.5 times 7.5 times 15 divided by 2.5 by times 2.5 times 2.5, and there's many other ways to get it. But we can't even get the kids to do the 8 by 4, the 4 by 3 by 2.
So how many boxes do fit in?
54.
Okay.
Now the only reason I know that is because of a prodigy that I have. A prodigy is, to me, I've been working with these kids since he's been 5 years old. I gave him the problem. When he did it, he was 8. He said to me, oh, that's easy. I said, easy? He said, yeah, it's 54. How can it be 54? He said, well, see, it's 7.5 feet wide, and it's 2.5 feet box. So 3 boxes must fit across. And he says it's 7.5 feet high, so 3 boxes must fit up. So that must mean that there are 9 of them at the end of this truck. He said, see this 15? That's 2 7.5s. That's 2 7.5s. So he said, therefore this is going to be 6 times, it's going to be 54. Now if I do it out by multiplying out all that, I still get 54. He did it almost 9 seconds. Almost 9 seconds. But he's absolutely unique beyond everything I've ever met in my life. So here's a new one. There's 2 companies are making the test. 2 companies are making the test. Here's the one from the other company dealing with the volume.
What are the companies that are?
The one is PARCC. The other is Smarter Balance. It almost seems like that butter. I mean, what's that? Smarter what? Smart Balance? Smart Balance, yeah. This is Smarter. There's an on it. So it's a company that is responsible for making, it's almost like the ones that put up the site for Obamacare. Same guy, I think. No, it's not, unless I'm fibbing. Not the same. But it could be a crash like you couldn't believe, because these are the kinds of questions, and see, these questions all have to be done on a computer. The kids will do all their responses on a computer. And so we're going to get to the end. It says, Walter put 1,050 cubic inches of dirt in the tank shown. Click the number on the line to show the height of the dirt in the tank. See, that's what it means. So it says click. And for this term, a full credit response, 1 point includes the tank filled to 5 inches. That would be if you did it, that's what it should have said. It should have said the tank was filled to 5 inches. That would have covered what this is saying. So therefore, everything's altogether different. And I don't know if schools are prepared for this difference. They might be, but I think that you should try to find out. I believe that the best way to do things is to have the schools present to you their plan for implementing the Common Core, because they did a lousy job implementing the Vermont framework. And I don't see that it's going to change. I really don't. Maybe I'm just a pessimist, and I shouldn't be. But I've only been into 700 or 800, 900 schools in the past 30 years. I don't see any of them any better than anyone else. Every once in a while we come across a school like Cornwall in which the children seem to have done very, very well. I'm talking to a gentleman the other day from Cornwall. He mentioned that sometimes there's like 9 kids in a class. That could be the reason they did well. But they also are basically pretty sharp kids. Weybridge also does quite well. Middlebury does not do very well at all. And Shoreham and Salisbury and Ripton are even less than Middlebury. And I'm afraid poor Bridport is down even lower than that. So what would be some of the differences that we would see even in, let's say, a thing like fractions? What happens is that because we're not supposed to be tellies anymore, we're supposed to be like more ASCIIs, These are the kind of problems that we used to get. And I'm in, like I say, a lot of schools. Matter of fact, in about 2 weeks, I got to go back up to some more schools over in New Hampshire. And the only reason I'm going is because I don't have to stay in a motel. The principal of the school bought a house that used to be a bed and breakfast, and he's given me a room in the school and in the house, which has its own bathroom. So I will have privacy, and I don't have to worry about doors slamming and this one and people yelling in the mornings. So I said to him, yes, I will keep coming. Love the school, and all the schools I go to, I love the kids. Don't mind the teachers either. Teachers are not bad. People who direct them, not in your life. They are our trouble. That's our target. Our target is, why is it that you are telling me that all the children that go to a particular school all need to do the same thing? I remember when I was there, we had Cuisinart rods, we had base 10, we had chip trading, we had fraction bars, we had lots of stuff. They're not there anymore. They're all gone. They're all gone. Once they bring bridges in, everything else gets thrown out. Everything else gets thrown out. So here's just a little dilemma. I didn't bring any materials with me, and I most likely should have. And I want to do this one here too. The reason I want to do this one here is I'm over in a middle school. The top one was the first week I was there, and I observed 20 classes that week, because that's something I do. I go into the math classes and observe, and then I'm like the arm of the principal, and I come back and I say, I just think you better go look. I do believe to spend 45 minutes every day correcting homework out of a 15-minute period seems excessive. Go take a look yourself and see what you think. So I never actually do any writing down of things. That's not the goal. The goal is to see, because somehow people have figured out how to make an administrator run around all day, every day, and he could still run around. If he started with a pile that big, if he worked on the pile all day, the next day he's going to have a pile that big. So they've got that figured out. If we can keep him in the office, he can't come out and watch what we're doing. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep him in there. And people where I want to go on the school board, we help it out by giving him more things to do so he can never see the classroom. I think some of them wouldn't know if the school could have floated away and they wouldn't have known it's gone. And some of them are good people. I think the one at Mary Hogan is a good person. I know him fairly well. His name is Tom. A delightful man. Anyway, what we have here, this is the old way of doing it. Now, kids, today we're going to learn how to multiply fractions. And, of course, I have to tell you how that works. So this is what I'm going to tell you. You see those numerators up there, that 2 and that 3? Well, you see that x there means multiply. So what do you think we're going to do to those two numbers? You think it could be to multiply the 2 and the 3, but you don't know your facts. That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt. Well, take off your shoes and let's go to town and see if we can figure it out. So you finally figured out what? You made tally marks? I see, that's a strategy that works in the 6th grade. Or down at Grand Union, they love you taking your shoes off down there. So what happens then is we might find that we get all of 6. And then we say, well, now we got a bigger one, more a harder fact, 3 times 4, which we get is 12. Now comes that awful thing. Most programs don't even touch it. It's division. It's like deadly. Division. I'm in a school in New Hampshire, and these 10 little girls have been given this problem. I said it on the with Hawaii 5-0, and I missaid. I misspoke. The 10 girls had 12 numbers to add up. And when they got the numbers added up, I said it came out to be 10,012. The fib was it was 1,012. And so they said to me, well, mister, can you help us? And I said, sure, tell me what you think I could give you a hand. They said, well, we have to figure out the average, and we don't know how to do that. And I said, well, boy, I can't tell you in 2 seconds how to do this because that is not how I do things. I said, but I do not let you know you're going to have to divide. Divide? We've never divided. I said, you're in the 6th grade. You've never divided? No, we've never have, never. I said, so the one little girl said to me, what is division then? I said, well, if you got 1,012, what you're going to have to figure out is how many 12s could you possibly make from a number that big? It's silent for a while. Then one little girl raised, and I got it. And I said, how many, hon? She said, 1. I said, 1? Yeah, she says it's right there. The number was 1,012. She found the 12. There it was. The one that was right there in the 1,012 was the number of 12s that she thought. She's been in school now 7 years, and this is where she's at. You say, great chance. You won't even get a job in Dunkin' Donut, McDonald's. They won't even hire you. What are you going to do? So we get this thing here, and then we get them to actually maybe divide that so that we get down to a final answer. But see, now comes the kicker. The core is going to say, you must justify that answer. So when I'm in the classes doing it, I was just the other day, matter of fact, I got a tape on it. I said to the little kid, well, justify it. He said, that's easy. I said, what? He said, 2 times 3 is 6, 3 times 4 is 12. If you simplify 6 12s, you got a half. I said, that's not justifying. He said, well, what is it? It's proving that the answer makes sense. And I said, well, he says it doesn't. I said, why doesn't it? He says, because why would 2/3 times 3/4 ever be a half? I said, because that's not what it says. He said, well, what does it say then? I said, 2/3 of 3/4. He says, what? I said, I don't know if I got it. I don't think I got it. My wife takes all my money, so I don't have any coins. But if I had coins, if I could make a drawing, and I was to make a drawing here, I should have brought this some quarters with me. Forgive me. And so this is a quarter. You know, a money quarter. So it's got 25 cents, 25 cents, 25 cents, or a quarter of a dollar, a quarter of a dollar, or a quarter of a dollar, whichever way you want to look at it. So this thing says, I have 3/4. That's what I've been given. Here's my 3/4. And this says, you can't have them all. You can have 2 of them, but that's all you can have. And so I said, well, which 2 would you like? Kid said, I like that one and that one. I said, well, how much of a dollar did you get? The kid says, I got a half. Oh, wow, is that what it means? That's math. That other stuff is arithmetic. We were trained in arithmetic. We have a large number of very magnificent teachers. Their background is horribly weak. And so they have a program. And they are very content with it because they don't have the background in the math to go on their own. You would have a tough time in reading to find teachers today who would not have a diversity of reading materials in their class that would be beyond comparisons. I mean, I'm in them all the time. I see the wonderful, magnificent kinds of books that children now have the opportunity to read. You know, I'm old. Mine was Dick and Jane. Mine was Dick and Jane. So the last one, it says, is division. And so when I'm in the class the other day, same lady that did this one, she says to me, now, kids, I want you to know I have a surprise for you. We have practiced this for the last 2 weeks. We've done hundreds and hundreds of these problems. Did they ever justify one of them? Not one. Not one. And I had a little girl came in, I was just sitting in the back of the room, a little girl had come in over from France, and she said to me, those kids didn't know the facts, but she did. So she said to me, I did the 20 of them already. She said, can you check to see if they're right? And I said, of course I can. So I went, yeah, I said, you got them all right, honey. I said, do you understand any of them? She said, no. I said, if I make an appointment with you to meet me down the library on a free period, do you have a free period, lunch or anything? I said, I'll bring some materials with me and I'll get you to see what that says. So you'll not only know how to do it, but you'll understand why the answer gets to it. She said, okay. It took me about 12 seconds. I mean, she was sharp as a tack. But other than that, she didn't know. So the lady says, well, you know, we're going to now do division and fraction. You're going to like this, kids. You're going to like this because it's almost like the one we just did. And there's only one change. You keep the first fraction as it is, but we're going to change that sign to multiplication. Why do we do that? Because that's what we do. Oh, okay. So that's what I'm going to do then. So I'm going to take 1/2, and so now I'm going to change the sign. So I got that. So that doesn't sound awful, but it should make sense. And then what are you going to do? She says, this will be the trick. This is what you'll have to remember. If it's division, you have to turn it upside down. I said, geez, I heard that once. As a matter of fact, I heard it when I was in the 6th grade. And I'm 78 years old. So I think I was about 10. 68 years ago, my nun said the same thing that lady said last year. 7th grade teacher, that's what she says. So the kids say, okay, 8 7s, 8 14ths. And so there it is. So now comes the problem. Justify it. There's no way they can justify it. There's no way. The teacher didn't know how to justify it. And that's not the only 7th grade teacher that I've worked with that couldn't justify that. So you say, what is it that is going on in comparison to the core? The core, in some people's eyes, are not good. There are areas of the core, like some of the language things and some of the history things, they may be most controversial. I don't like the first 3 grades of the Common Core at all. I think they're so weak, it's unbelievable. But 3 through 5, not bad. 6 through 8, pretty good math. But not if you don't develop a kid who is pretty good when they go to move into the 3rd and 4th and 5th grade. And we're not developing them. That's very clear. This time we have a little more time because the testing in the Common Core will take place at the end of the 3rd grade. The only naughty part is it's next year. It is next year when it happens. So the kneecap is over. It was done in October. We have this whole year. I don't know what schools are doing. I wish that we had people here that would come to this so I could have found out what it is that schools are doing to prepare for what's coming. I'm scared. I am scared. Because now you're in competition with all the schools in the United States of the 45 states that accepted this. You're not just in competition with little old Vermont. And although I do believe they'll figure out how to hide the true data, just like they have it here in Vermont. They've hidden it. So the last thing I want to do is I just thought I'd show you a little bit about the hidden data. I thought that would be only fair.
I want to justify that last.
Yeah. There's a sneak every place I go. There is always somebody who's trying to say, will you do that? Let me just find this little guy here, and then I'll. Now, you're a bright kid, you know. You know that, don't you? Okay, here's what it is then. Let me get my paper back here again. Okay, what it says is that I have something called 7/8. Let me just do it. Let me make it here. I'm going to use a tube, okay? Can I use a tube? Will that be okay? It holds water, okay? So here's my tube. And when it's filled to 7/8 of its capacity, okay? That seem reasonable? Now, let me do this one thing. I did not simplify this when we got done. I didn't do that. So I need to simplify that. So 4/7 is my answer. So I got what, 7/8? If I fill that up, how much is in that tube? 7/8 of what? What would you put water in? How would we measure water?
Gallon.
Okay, so that tube holds what?
1 gallon.
Holds
7/8.
7/8 of a gallon. It doesn't hold a gallon. If you put a gallon in, it's going to spill over. What I'm going to put in it is a 1/2 gallon. Am I filling it halfway? Or am I putting it at a half gallon? What am I doing?
Oh,
No, no.
half gallon.
I'm putting in a half gallon. Because it would, if it was a full gallon and I put a half gallon in, then it would be halfway. But it's not, it's only 7/8. So now I gotta say, I wonder how many eighths that half is worth. Any idea of the eighths? What do you think there, my son?
How many eighths?
Yeah, a half gallon. If you had to change that into eighths, what could you change a half gallon to be worth?
Well, it would be 3.5 eighths would be a half.
My question is not good. My question is not good. A half gallon all by itself, how many eighths would that be? Would it have a chance of being 4/8?
Oh, if you have a whole gallon is 8 eighths.
And is it, would a whole gallon be 8/8?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Half gallon,
So a half gallon might be what?
4 eighths.
All right, so therefore the half gallon is also worth 4/8. So when I put the half gallon in, I filled 4 of the 7 pieces that were there. Let's see. From here to here is how many eighths?
4.
From here to here is how many eighths?
8.
No, 7. We're only filling it to, we're putting 7/8 of a gallon.
Your little hatch mark, though, shouldn't be at the top.
Right.
Yes, it should.
It should?
That's the fill. Anything beyond this, it goes overboard. This thing.
Held a gallon.
No, I didn't say that.
Oh, okay.
No, I said it held 7/8 of a gallon. It doesn't hold a gallon.
Okay.
If you try to put a gallon in it, it would spill over. So that's all this holds is 7/8 of a gallon, but I didn't fill it. I only put, what, a half a gallon? So the half a gallon is worth how many eighths? So if I was to break this up into, oh, geez. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Some of these eighths got a little bit bigger than others. You know, the old think ahead. So if I did put water in here, see, that's how much water I put in. I didn't fill it, did I? So how many of those eighths did I actually use with water? Out of how many if that's possible?
7.
So that's why the answer comes out to be 4/7. That's what it says. That's what division of fractions says. The justifying of this is very difficult. Hence, they never do it.
But using your visual imagery makes the fractions much more accessible.
Oh, yeah.
And at least for maybe some of us learners who need
All of us.
concrete,
Well, all of us.
that's abstract.
That's what the core is trying to say. And the core is saying in the process of teaching, you are to provide the learner with the materials that they can see what the math is asking them to learn. And then once that's happened, we might pull them away to see if they could do it all by themselves just on paper. Would the paper ever make sense? So if I now change this thing and I said to you, all right, we have 1/4 divided by 3/4, right? So I got a new tube. This time the tube holds 3/4 of a gallon. I'm going to put 1/4 of a gallon in it. And I guess I'm wondering how much of the tube I filled.
1/3.
Yeah, see how quick it changes? Now it makes sense. Once it makes sense, that's what concepts are. Concepts say your answer is supposed to make sense. And the thing is, we've deprived them of sense. So there are lots of people who feel that it's them. And the big change is now we're talking mathematics. We're talking not arithmetic anymore. We're now talking mathematics. And mathematics will expect you to justify. The core will expect you to justify. And I know with the way most of these kids are taught, if they cannot do the framework, they don't have a chance on the core unless schools get going. And they may be getting going. but I can't seem to get information that they are. So you say, what kids? Well, these kids. These children right now are in the 8th grade. But when they were in the 7th grade, they took the kneecap. Now, look at this. We had, from 60 points on the test, has 66 points in it. That's how many tests. One child in that class got every single question right. I mean, there's a proficient with distinction kid. That's a kid that should have been rewarded, should have had this. I mean, all kinds of acclamation.
What school are you showing?
This is Mary Hogan School, but they're now, when they took this test, they had mums, because they always are checking the year before. Then from 50 to 59, there were 9 students. So out of the 62 students now, getting a grade of 75 or better, we have 10 kids. 10 out of 62. Then you say, well, then we got a big chunk, 15 students. So now we can say 25 students will get 60 or better on a test. Do you know that every single one of those kids is called proficient? Every single one. All of them. Even the last ones. See the 30 to 39, these 9? They're also called proficient, yet they only got 45 to 59% of the test correct. The other 28 didn't get that much. They did not get that much. So out of 62 kids, 28 of them said, I know almost nothing. Because, see, a lot of the questions are multiple choice. You're not going to believe what some kids do. Would you, sir, would you ever believe what kids might do at a multiple choice question? I mean, be wild. What do you think they might do?
They might guess.
Positively they might do it. But we know they would never, right? We know they would never do that. So that means the data actually says most of the kids get lower than that. That's what it says. Is this the first year they had the kneecap? No. Second year? No. 9th year? Yeah. So you say after 9 years, these are your results, and you're not looking to see what you're doing? That, I mean, how can you be happy with this? What does mums do with the kids who are that far away from anything? I mean, if you even went to the next kid after the little lady that, I think it was the lady, I don't know, the first was 60, I think the next kid got 57 questions. And it just kept plummeting on the way down. You know, you've got, you can fail 60% of the test and be called proficient. You can fail 25% of the test and be called proficient with distinction. Distinction. Then the love word is if you get more than 40% of the test wrong, more than 60%, you're called slightly below. Slightly. Why do they do that? Because they know most of the kids are going to fall there. Most of the kids are going to fall in those 3 categories. They're going to fall slightly below, proficient, or proficient with distinction. What kind of words do you think that means to a populace? Do you think it means that we're doing a good job? I mean, does it sound good?
Yes.
Sure it does. Are we? No. And I'm trying to get it so that, I'm not trying to pick on the schools. I'm only trying to get them to look at what they're doing. And it's just not here. It's not just here. It's not here.
It reminds me of Orwell's doublespeak, or in the novel 1984, where the government said ignorance is strength. And lots of ways to justify the fact that their population was controlled. But I'm not saying this, but it's redefining what proficient is in the dictionary.
Oh, most definitely, and in everything else that, I mean, for the number of people I've talked to. What I'm trying to say, I only want to do this, is say, I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm trying to see if you won't look at what you're doing. Something that you're doing is not working. I don't know what it is, but I know it's there, because I know it's in the other schools too. I just did one on this year's, and was the new results are out. I did not receive my copy of it yet from the school, although I made a request. But another school hired me to do the data of their school. And it is worse than the other years in that school that they've ever had. And this guy is about ready to kill himself. Because what he's finding is, this is a sixth grade that I'm doing. What he's finding, in the sixth grade, they're actually doing the fifth grade. That's what they're checking, which means it's ascending schools. The ascending schools are sending him an enormous number of children who can't do anything. They don't know what 7 times 6 might give you 42. They have no idea how to divide it all. They are lucky they can add. If their fingers ever fell off, they could never add. We're in trouble. We're 34th in the country. I mean, in the nation. No, sorry, in the world. We're going farther down. So, I'm running for the school board, and the reason I'm running is to say, come on, let's take a peek. We want to get the kids there safely, and we do. I loved the lady the other day who was running for selectman, who worked like a dog to get everything ready and made a presentation and knock your socks off. So if we can get them there safe, which we always want them to do, if we can keep them there safe, we always want to. But don't we want something to happen to them while we're there? I mean, isn't there reason for going there? Learning? I mean, we're spending the highest per capita almost in all of Vermont, and Vermont's almost the highest in the nation. So, I mean, it's not like we're cheap. It's not like we're cheap. We're not cheap. We're really saying we're trusting you. And anyway, that's my thing. I was hoping a whole bunch of questions, that would come up, so therefore that would have taken up the hour. Go ahead.
How will they be testing the Common Core standards?
They will be done by the computer mostly. In other words, that's still up in the fuzzy. It's like, how are you going to figure out if you really got affordable health? It's all going to rest on these computers. And so what's going to be is, if they start you off with the one like the truck, remember I did the guy with the truck? If that's the volume one you get, and you don't do it, you just can't get it at all, then they may take 2 of the dimensions off and only 1 dimension with a fraction. Then they may go back to no, because that's dropping back a year. If you went back to the year before that, you'll find the volume, but there are no fractions. It's like the one I showed you. But the one I showed you in the Common Core is in the 5th grade. That one was in the 6th grade. So you're back a year. And then they would even maybe go gentler than that. Instead of using numbers like 8 and 5 and 9, they might use 2 and 3 and 4. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask you, how are teachers being prepared for that?
I don't know.
And repeat the question too, please, so that it gets recorded.
What's that?
If you could repeat.
Oh, sure. How are teachers being prepared? I don't know. That's my scary. My scary is in most of the schools that I'm in, the preparation is almost non-existent. They're trying to do the same thing that they've been doing. They don't see that the Common Core is saying the teaching practice must change. It is the teaching practice is what is going to be used to deal with the content. The content has changed. Not horrible, but because division of fractions has always been there, multiplication of fractions, multiplication of decimals, but they got to get away from this. I want to multiply 3/10 by 3/10. Oh, let's do that now. Let's count. We'll start over here on the left and we'll go over 1. We'll start over here on the left and go over 1. Now we'll count to 2, right? We got an answer. Now we're going to go the other way.
But earlier you said the problem of some of this failure of instruction is not the teachers, but the administrators. But in a sense, what you're also implying is that the teachers don't want to change their teaching method.
We're seeing that, it's like, I think that one of the chances of the elementary school is I think we've all come to the conclusion that you can't be good in all those things. You can't. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I taught 6th grade for an awful long time. And I've taught now 52 years. And I've concentrated lately on math. I don't know how well I would do if I went back to be a 6th grade teacher right now. And I had to teach the science, and I had to teach the math, and I had to teach the reading, and the language, and the taking care of the kids, and making sure that the snotty nose is wiped, and every other damn thing. I'm really not sure I would do well on them. So we've got to come to the conclusion that maybe we got to break it down. I mean, what is the big difference between being in a 6th grade here and being in a 6th grade in a middle school where I am? In the 6th grade in the middle school, all the people who teach math are math teachers. Yet here, they're not. They're just happy-go-lucky, wonderful people. They can't do it. It's way too much to expect. So therefore, they've got to take a leisure on something. So they'll most likely say, well, what is the area that I had the most trouble with? It was math. So I'll just rely upon this program. It tells me, good morning. Have the kids do this and do that and do them and some of the things they ask the kids to do. I have great compassion for teachers. Magnificent compassion. I am one. But
At what grade levels will assessments be?
starting in the third, at the end of the third grade, they are talking about moving down to the kindergarten, which I think we've got to do, myself personally. I don't think, when you talk about assessments, people think about, almost like coming in with a rifle over your shoulder. Huh, 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 huh. I mean, it's a nice little thing. You say to a little kid, listen, you want to see if they know anything about money, right? You say, Jennifer, I have 3 coins in my hands. They're worth 7 cents. I wonder if you got any idea what they are. And Jennifer says, I don't. You say, well, here's a pile of coins. Here's a little pile of coins now. Now, you can fool around with the coins if you want, but you only have to find out how many coins do you have to find out? 3. And they're worth 7 cents. Do you think any of them would have to be pennies? I don't know. You see, so then you can say, I don't think the child has learned much about money. But it doesn't mean you have to be nasty while you ask a kid a little gentle question. It's like asking a kid if he knows his basic facts. You just can say, do you have any idea what happens if you multiply 3 groups of 5? And the kid says, no. And you say, well, okay, how about 2 groups of 5? No. How about 1 group of 5? In the 8th grade, that's not right. That's not good. It's not good. But we can be very loving, asking people what they know. We don't have to be cruel at all. Not cruel at all.
So how do you multiply 1 group of 5?
I have no idea. I have no idea. What I do is like when I want to count the dogs in the room, I count their legs and then divide by 4. I mean, that's how I do it. Why would I do it any different? See, I think there's such joy in this language of math. I mean, I hate it. I mean, I've been 52 years. I'm being very selective these last few years because I'm already 78 years old. I would be just excited tomorrow as I was the very first day that I was allowed the privilege of being a teacher. I think it's the most honorable of all professions, without a doubt. The most honorable. Yet, we don't train them well. It was funny. I was talking to Ruth Hardy, and I said to her the other day, I said, Ruth, how much money do we set aside in the budget for the people for Social Security? And she says, well, we have to do it by law. And I said, yeah, but I'm just kind of curious. What is it? She says, I think it's around $350,000. I said, yeah, so we're sending that off for someone's retirement fund, right? How much money do you set aside for professional development? She said, $1,500. I said, whoa, a little difference here. I mean, I know that when they do some professional development, they get money out of the central office. I mean, there's grants and stuff, I know that's true. But when you say, really, you say, gee, and $350,000 going to Social Security, you say, how much is going for health? How much is going for the health benefits? I mean, you're almost in the same ballgame, if not more. So you're saying, wow, we're paying $800,000-$900,000. It has not one thing to do with being an educated human being. So I don't want to get rid of Social Security. I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in not having the health plans either. But I am interested in the professional development, maybe getting up into the $25,000 category easily, because we need it. Because the way we have to train people today is you're not going to do it in a crowd. You're not going to have a group come to a meeting, sit down with their knitting, and think you're going to get anywhere. You got to take teacher by teacher. I have a teacher. She's teaching the 3rd grade. Jim, she'd really like to know about the core. Is there any chance you could work with her? I can let you have at least maybe 12 hours. I can free her from her class on some, and I expect you to go into the class and do some demonstration lessons with her, and then I want you to help watch her, and then together can we possibly see if we could get her over whatever it is that's bothering her. Because some of it doesn't bother them. I mean, some of it is not bothersome, but you got to get them over it, and you do it one at a time. One at a time. That's what I'm doing now. Okay? Thank you most kindly. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Here, I would ally to that or shop there
Right.
and be involved there. So I think some next level description, more concrete description of exactly what is the Middlebury component of the offering
Right.
would be very